All right, hello and welcome to Atlanta First Sports Tonight. I'm Fred Kalil. Scott Pennyman, our producer, is here. We're all ready to go. Hey. Lots of things to talk about, but let's get right to it, Scotty. Let's talk about Nate McMillan fired. But, really, there's a lot of talk he wanted out. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it seems really believable that he wanted out, right? I mean, just kind of when you look at the direction of the team so far this season and kind of, like I said, they've been kind of playing lazy the entire season. It didn't really look like things were sort of meshing on the court. They're a game below 500 at the All-Star break.
29-30.
Yeah, so
not terrible.
No, not a terrible record. Just you could tell something was missing. Just when you kind of watch them the whole year, the talent level improved with getting DeJounte Murray in the offseason, right? So you would think that when you acquire an All-Star player to put along with Trae Young, you would think that the team would take that next step and be a better team than they've been the last couple seasons, maybe even be a team that can come out the East. But I think when you kind of looked at things, they just looked stale the whole season. They look their play kind of looked uninspired. They didn't look like they had that extra edge, and they were probably headed towards being either a non-playoff team or probably a fringe sort of play-in team. So that's below expectations for the talent that's on the roster. I think when you look at this roster, like I've said, we've brought this topic up a couple different times. We've done this show. When you look at the Hawks' talent, their record doesn't look indicative of what the talent is on the roster, right?
Well, I mean, they got to play every once in a while, though, don't they? I mean, don't the guys have to show up and play?
Yeah,
I mean, that's part of the deal. I mean, Trae Young, John Collins, well, he's suited for a more veteran team. Okay, John, well, then why don't you play like a veteran? Why don't these guys play better? I mean, I don't know. They're professionals. They get paid a lot of money. I mean, they shouldn't need, okay, you better play better, John. Do you need some rest? Do you need load management? What should we do for you, big guy?
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
I agree. Look,
let's go. I mean, after a while, you got to show up and play.
Yeah, and I agree. Look,
I mean, that's my. I've never. I would never even have come close to the talent to even be close to that. But I'm just saying, don't you? I mean, as a professional, in anything, any walk of life, don't you, as a professional, have to show up to work and do your job?
Yeah,
right?
I think you're absolutely right for it. I think that when you look at the team, like I say, it's just. But we always talk about that, right? I mean, in the NBA. It's so much more than just it's a players' league.
It is. No doubt. Get that. Oh, without a doubt.
So it's a players' league. So I think that, and we also know what happens, right? When a team is underperforming in the NBA.
In any sport.
Yeah, right. But definitely in any sport, but certainly in the NBA where the players are paid significantly more than coaches are.
Yeah.
When things go south in the NBA, they're not going to go looking for players. They can't. It's significantly more difficult to replace a Trae Young than it is to replace a Nate McMillan.
Oh,
right?
no doubt. There's no doubt.
Right.
There's no doubt at all.
Right, and that's kind of why in this situation, when things go south, when a team in the NBA isn't playing the sort of basketball that they're supposed to be playing, that's why the coach is the first to go. Because you can find another adequate enough coach to get you through a season, but guys like Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, John Collins, those guys are a little harder to replace.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Who wants this job, okay? Because, I mean, I'm told, and it's been reported, that, Nate wanted out in December, and he didn't go, all right? Mike Woodson, they fired him. He took him from 13 wins to 53, and they got rid of him. Mike Budenholzer got out. He wanted out. I mean, so who wants this job? Does anybody even want this job? Who wants to do all this, really? I mean, I know you get paid a lot of money, so... Right. They're talking about Kenny Atkinson, a guy who was an assistant under Bud.
Yeah.
They're talking about Quinn Snyder, who did a decent job with the Utah Jazz. Guys like that, younger guys who can come in and do this. And, of course, Nate is an older guy and a veteran, who played in the league, played in the association for a long time, a really good player with Seattle, with Indiana. He was on those Pacers teams that beat the Hawks and eliminated them, in the mid-'90s. I mean, he's a good player, and I think he's a good coach, too.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right, Fred. I mean, but like you said at first, it is an NBA job, so it's there's only 30 of them available. How many teams are there? 30 teams, right?
Like that,
There's only 30 of these jobs available in the world. So, of course, you'll be able to find a quality head coach that's going to step in there. But you're also right. I mean, it seems like, there's been some talk of like maybe the superstar Trae Young being kind of a coach killer, because it seems like no matter who coaches him, for the last couple of years, there seems to be kind of a disconnect, right? So I think he's at a point in his career where, you got to be really careful of the kind of coach that you do get, because, in the NBA, like we always say, it's maybe not fair, but you kind of have to walk that line. as a head coach, you have to be able to get along with a superstar player.
Oh, sure, no doubt.
So I think that's the number one thing that they should look for when it comes to a head coach for the Hawks is what sort of coach can mesh well with Trae Young, because he's a superstar. He's probably not going anywhere. So you have to be able to get a coach that's on the same page with Trae, DeJounte, and those guys if this team is going to take that next step.
But what is really remarkable to me, and I said this already, but it's just the coaches who have walked away from this place, and who don't want it. I mean, that's the key. They'll get somebody that wants this job, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I mean, guys, Bud won 60 games.
True.
And the next year, they struggle, and bye.
Yeah,
Travis Link, stepped away from the GM's game. Something's going on here, man.
Yeah,
there's something going on.
Yeah, when we look at Bud, he's an NBA championship coach now.
Right.
He won a title there. So, yeah, there's something, and it's kind of baffling because Atlanta's obviously a great location, great destination. It's the kind of city where people would want to be. You would think a place like Atlanta wouldn't have a lot of difficulty in attracting, elite level coaches, but now you have to start looking at some of the players and the personnel on the team, and you have to start looking at, are those guys coachable, or are they, are you kind of setting yourself up to fail if you come to a place like Atlanta, where maybe you have to coach a guy like Trae Young, who maybe hasn't gotten along with a couple coaches, maybe that's why they're no longer employed. So I just think that, sure, it's a desirable. It seems like a desirable situation.
Sure,
but
it's a great job.
But like you said, something's not quite right.
Job. Yeah, there is something not quite right. So I don't know what they do. Who do they get? They're talking about Kenny Atkinson, who was an assistant here. They're talking about Quinn Snyder, who did a good job with the Jazz. Who do you get?
Yeah, I think those are good names. I think Quinn Snyder was the kind of coach who proved that he could go to a place like Utah, win some games, maybe sort of make players around, coach players up to be a little better than what they are, and probably get, I guess the best word is get the most out of players. So I think
he was an assistant
Snyder,
here too, so that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, so I think that's a solid fit. Kenny Atkinson, but let's be honest, Fred, those kind of coaches are the same kind of coaches, right? It's one of those things I was telling you before we came on the set today. The great Larry Bird, a few years ago when he was coaching and he was kind of in front office roles, he said something that I think is kind of true. He goes, I think an NBA coach is really only meant to be with the team for about 3 or 4 years, because it takes about that long for basically you kind of run the course. The guys have heard all their speeches. Outside of the greats like Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra, guys who have won multiple championships, most NBA coaches coach for about 3 or 4 years because, it kind of runs the cycle. Players are normally kind of excited when they first get hired, so everyone's kind of like, oh, cool, we have a new coach, and then things are really good, and then a couple years in, things get kind of stale. That's kind of par for the course for every NBA team. So I think the Hawks are no different. I think they got a few years with Nate McMillan. Now it's time to turn the page to someone else who will probably only last 3 or 4 years as well.
Yeah, well, but I go back to the interesting part of the guys that wanted out.
Yeah.
Like Nate back in December, hey, let's go, let's get out. No, let's hold on.
Now, why do you think it is, though?
It must be something in the culture in the front office or something. I don't know. Or maybe they don't want to deal with Trae Young. Maybe they don't want to deal with John Collins. But, that wasn't the case with Bud. Budenholzer for some reason, didn't want to stick around.
I guess that's...
they won 60 games.
Yeah, I guess that's a question to be asked, right? I think when you look at the personnel that's on the team...
Travis Link wanted out, right? Come on.
Yeah, so Bud was kind of before Trae Young, right? So
Bud was before Trae Young, yeah. But I'm just saying though, coaches down the line, who have just said, no, thank you. Atlanta's a great place. What a great city. It's a great NBA town, but it's just not a great Hawks town.
Yeah, but I think there's an element of that's right, but I do think there's also an element of just look around the NBA. Look at most of these places in the NBA. Even really good coaches in the NBA may only stick around for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. Even in the NFL, right?
Sure, yeah.
In all these sports,
right? Yeah.
I just think players after a while, it's like anything else. When someone is over you, just think the NBA season is a grind. It's 82 games.
It is.
You have, so many practices, so many games. You just kind of get tired of hearing the same voice day in and day out from a coach. And I just think that just wears on guys after like 3 or 4 years, to the point that every 3 or 4 years you have to replace a coach.
Well, you think about it, NBA and NHL, I think are probably the 2 toughest sports to compete. And I'm saying on the wear and tear.
Absolutely.
And I know football, you get the daylights knocked out of you and all that stuff, okay? I've been there. But I'm just saying, when you got to travel, like you go back to back, like hockey, you play a hockey game in Chicago, then you'll fly to New York and play. Same with basketball. You play at home one night, then you fly to Detroit and play the next night. That's tough, man.
Right.
I mean, that's hard. You do 82 games. Both sports run around 80 games, 82 games. That's
just think about it. They say familiarity breeds contempt, right? Isn't that how the saying goes? When you're just around the same coaches all the time, 3 or 4 straight years, you're hearing the same messages day in and day out. You're hearing the same messages during games, same messages during practice. You're around this person, 5 or 6, 7 months out of the year.
Right, hell yeah.
Just at some point, you're just going to get tired of hearing that message. So, we could look at Nate McMillan and say what went wrong, what didn't go wrong. I just think Nate McMillan was being Nate McMillan, right?
I mean, yeah. He's a good coach.
Yeah, he's a good
coach. If he
coach.
wants to coach, he'll coach again.
Yeah, and
if he wants to. No doubt. And he'll do great.
Right, and that's what the NBA does, right? They kind of rinse and repeat. That's what they do with head coaches. I mean, a guy like Nate McMillan, Kenny Atkinson, they'll coach from one place for 3 or 4 years. Then they'll move on to the next city. That's just the way it goes.
Kenny Atkinson's a younger guy. I mean, he could, come in here and maybe be that voice. Like I said, he was with Bud, and maybe he could be that voice and maybe do something with this team. I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right, number 2, the Atlanta United season opener coming up. No big star. When I talk to a lot of people, Scott, there's just no big star on this side. There's just no big star on Atlanta United as we, talk about the 5 stripes getting ready to go back in action on the pitch.
Yeah.
There's just no real star on the team. Joseph Martinez is gone now, and he was like he was a global star, kind of.
A big name.
A big name. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be a different kind of team this year, right? I mean, anytime you lose someone of Joseph Martinez, that kind of magnitude, there's going to be hard time to replace. But the one thing that gets people excited other than big names? Winning.
Yeah.
So if they win enough games this year, if they can go out there, score enough goals, win enough games, I think it won't really matter that Joseph Martinez or they don't have that sort of big time name. Yeah. I think that people will come out, they'll have a good time, and when you're winning in any sport, people will take notice and people will have a lot of fun. So I think that, like you said, and look, there's also an opportunity there for some people to gain a big name, right? When one big name goes out the door like that, other people will step up.
Yeah, you got to see that. And here's the thing: a recent survey, though, among Atlanta United fans and season ticket holders, 50% expect the finish to be from 6th to 10th place in MLS. 50% of your supporters. 19.5% think it's going to be 10th. And only 22% have you in the top 4. That's the people that, you've got, no Joseph Martinez, you got Gonzalo Pineda as the coach. And I mean, that's kind of incredible, really. I mean, if you think about it, because this is really, we've proven ourselves, Atlanta, as a great soccer town. I mean, this is great. We get great crowds. Of course, Arthur Blank's team, great ownership. Right. They're always going to do whatever it takes to win, whether it's in marketing, whether it's on the pitch, wherever. They're going to do whatever it takes to win. And I just think that Atlanta United is such a great brand, and it's becoming a great brand because of the way the team has been marketed and the way they've played, too. I mean, they've won the MLS Cup. I think it'd be kind of neat, to see him back in the picture again. So let's hope that happens.
Look, and sometimes you've seen it, Clark Frey, you've been covering sports for so long. A lot of times when teams are counted out, that's when you get sort of the best from them.
Yeah.
Because less is expected, and sometimes guys play better when there's not as much pressure. So I think that could be the case from Atlanta United this season. I think they could play a lot better than they did last year. Expectations may be a little bit lower, but I think guys will have a chip on their shoulder and guys will have something to prove. So I think they'll play a lot better this year than they did last year.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic now, all right? The new era of Baby Braves. Now, I remember the Baby Braves when they were in 2005, Jeff Francoeur.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Brian McCann.
Yeah.
All those people, okay? They had a good pitcher on that team named Kyle Davies. He was from Stockbridge, Georgia.
Gotcha.
This group of Baby Braves has a great group and a good outfielder who went to Stockbridge High School.
Yeah.
Michael Harris II.
That's my guy.
So there's some similarities there. You've got Michael Harris, you've got Vaughn Grissom. Those guys that are kind of the Baby Braves coming up now, leading the charge, where you had McCann and Francoeur before. So it's kind of like a reboot, a reset, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be good for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think that's tremendous, right? I mean, I think that's a big credit to the Braves organization to be able to win a World Series a couple years ago. Let some of those guys go, like Freddie Freeman, some of the veteran players like that, and now be able to rebuild around young players like you said, like Harrison, Grissom, and those guys. I think they're in a great spot, right? I mean, they're in a really great spot. They have those guys tied up. How long did they tie Harris up for? 7 or 8 years?
Right. And that'll be, even though he got a lot of money, that's going to be a bargain, trust me.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a
It'll
bargain. And they're going to have him for a long time.
And Mike's going to be happy. Don't worry about
Absolutely,
that.
Yeah, he's happy. He's at home.
His whole family. It's great to see his whole family out there with him, too. That was so neat.
Yeah, he's not going to be hurting for any money, right?
No. And the night he was drafted, it was so cool because his family was out there and everything. You know, and John Hollins, who was in our sales department here at Atlanta News First, was one of his travel coaches when he was younger.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty awesome. The fact that he gets to play here. I thought that was a great story here last year. Him getting a chance, and now he's going to be next 7 or 8 years. He's going to be Atlanta Brave. He's going to be able a chance to play ball in his own town. He's a fabulous player. He's going to make several All-Star games. You have guys like Grissom. You have, man.
I'm interested to see Vaughn Grissom. I want to see Vaughn Grissom every day for 162 and see how that shakes out. Because I think he's going to be great. And I think he's going to be great at shortstop. You know, you got Ozzie at second. You've got Vaughn Grissom at short. You've got Austin Riley at third. You know, Olsen at first. So the infield is solid. Man. Solid as it gets.
And pitching too, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're going to have a good pitching staff. Obviously, you got Max Fried. You know, you got Max Fried as your ace. You've got, there's your lefty, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, one more time, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're positioned very well. They're positioned well to make another big run, right? I mean, just last year, I guess you look at it as kind of a setback because they didn't go as far as they wanted to, but now they're kind of reloaded. Some of those young players that we just talked about have a lot of experience now, right? They've got that playoff experience. Harris, all those guys, Harris, Grissom, Strider, those guys now have playoff experience. So now they'll be a year older, a year wiser, and I think they'll be ready and more positioned to make a run this year.
I hope so. I mean, it's always fun. You know, when you're covering teams and they win, it's always fun because the guys are in a good mood when you got to talk to them after the game.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're not upset. They're in good mood. And you know, and that's one thing Brian Snitker and Bobby Cox have created such a great culture. Bobby Cox before Brian Snitker, but Snit the same way, just a great culture. All the guys are good guys. They make sure that, you know, that the media and everybody's treat players, treat fans very well. I think that's one thing that the culture of the Braves is really cool. I don't know if you've noticed that coming in.
Absolutely. When I came in, one thing I noticed is a very well-run organization. And when you do the right things, like with any business organization, when you do the right things from the top, it's going to trickle down to the bottom. So I don't care if you're talking about the owner of a team all the way down to the person who the clubhouse attendance.
Right.
When all those things are all the way in order, when the person at the top makes sure everything is done the right way, it's going to always trickle down. Look, the Braves always seem like a competitor. There's a reason for that.
Right.
It's because they do the things the right way. And I think when you look at this year's roster, when you look at the manager all the way down, when you look at the ownership all the way down, they have done things the right way, and that's why they're positioned again to make a World Series run, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think so. I don't think there's any doubt about it. You know, I mean, you go to the top, you've got Terry McGuirk, right? You've got your Alex Anthopoulos as the general manager. You've got, you know, John Sherholz, the president emeritus and all that. But, I mean, you've got just so many good people in that organization, so many good baseball people as well. So let's hope the Braves have a great year. Opening day is not that far away. You know, Emily is down at spring training, so be sure to watch Atlanta News First for Emily's reports. She visited with Michael Harris. We saw that story today. You'll probably see it again at 9 on Atlanta News First on Peachtree TV, so be sure you check that out.
Absolutely.
All right. Number 4, Marcus Mariota in a Netflix series called Quarterback. It's a docu-series. You got Mariota, you got Kirk Cousins, Patrick Mahomes in there, so it's going to kind of be behind the scenes of the 2021 season. So we'll actually get an inside look at what happened with Marcus Mariota, right?
Yeah, I love that kind of lineup, right? So with those quarterbacks who you named, that's going to be a part of that mini-series. You got Patrick Mahomes, who's the best in the game.
Right.
You got Kirk Cousins, who's perhaps the most average quarterback in the National Football League.
Who can talk, though, right? I mean, he's good. He's funny. He's a funny guy.
Is there more average guy than Kirk Cousins? I mean,
he's got a cannon, man. He's good. He's pretty good. He started a long time.
Yeah, he has. I mean, he's a quality quarterback. He's made a lot of money. But if you Google average quarterback right now, and if you just pop up Google right now and type in average quarterback, Kirk Cousins' face will appear. And then you have Marcus Mariota, who, you know, I guess it never really worked out for him as a starter in the NFL, right? I mean, we saw Marcus Mariota play this last season for the Atlanta Falcons, and I think we kind of saw why things didn't work out the way they should, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's got my attention, right? I mean, just when you think about Marcus Mariota and kind of, would you call it a disappointing NFL career so far?
Yes. Yeah, a disappointing career?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's Banks, man. I mean, he's going to be okay.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, guys like him and Sam Bradford, they made a lot of money.
Here's the thing. I mean, take Dennis Green. They are who we thought they were.
Right.
And we let them off the hook. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Like, hey, look, I never thought Marcus Mariota would be that great. Look, when I saw Marcus Mariota at Oregon, I saw him throwing quick screens. Like, I mean, it was pretty much quick screen. I didn't see any NFL quality from Marcus Mariota. I don't understand why he jumped up on draft day like he did. I never understood the fascination with Marcus Mariota as an NFL quarterback. Teams did. They obviously know more than me.
And Arthur Smith worked with him. I mean, that was his offensive coordinator in Tennessee. So you thought that, hey, look. But again, I guess he didn't turn out.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Mariota was a very limited skill quarterback, right? I mean, there wasn't anything, like I said, when you watched him at Oregon, there wasn't anything that you saw to where he looked like an NFL caliber quarterback. And kind of what he's been in the NFL is this, he's kind of, and
he's been an average,
Right, he's in a starting elite quarterback's body. But he's really a kind of just a middle of the road sort of fringe starter backup quarterback. Nonetheless, though, I think him being part of a mini-series is pretty cool because
I mean, I'm interested to see Kirk Cousins behind the scenes too because he's a funny guy.
Kirk Cousins is a funny guy.
I know he's an average guy, but he's a funny guy. And Mahomes, I want to see him too because he's got a lot of personality and he's got that cannon.
Yeah, I mean,
all those different arm angles, all those, he can do everything. I mean, that's.
Look, I mean, anytime I have an opportunity to watch Patrick Mahomes, I'm happy just because just what he's done, like I say, like we talked about last week, just what he's done in his first 5 years as a quarterback is just amazing. And then, like I said, you got a guy like Kirk Cousins. It's kind of crazy, right? Just when you think of a guy like Kirk Cousins. So when you have a guy like Kirk Cousins as your quarterback, what do, right? Because he's never terrible enough to want to replace.
No.
But you know for a fact when Kirk Cousins is your quarterback, you're only going but so far. That's just what we've seen. That's what you're going to get. You know good and well Kirk Cousins is never going to be a Super Bowl quarterback. That's never going to happen.
All right, here we go. Okay, our last topic. With that, what's on your mind?
Oh, man, there's so much on my mind. What I'm excited for is kind of like the stretch run of the NBA, right? I mean, just kind of with the Hawks doing what they did today and yesterday and getting rid of Nate McMillan.
Right.
It's going to be kind of fun coming down the stretch here to see where they can end up at. I mean, I'm just interested to see here who I mean, with Prunty taking over, I mean, I don't think there's any great expectation. Look, I mean, it's all about the players at this point, right?
I want to see how Brent Key's going to do at Georgia Tech. I mean, here's a guy who played at Georgia Tech.
Yes.
Right? Coached with George O'Leary, played for George O'Leary. He's the guy that I want to see how he does at Georgia Tech because when Georgia Tech is playing well, I mean, Georgia is Georgia, all right? They're the king of the hill.
Right.
They're the biggest program, one of the biggest in the country, certainly the biggest in the state. And Georgia Tech is kind of they're the smaller program. There's no doubt about that. And when Georgia Tech, though, is playing well, the city of Atlanta is fired up. And when Georgia Tech can kind of at least just hang with Georgia, just hang with them, it's better. Everything, football season's better.
Well, look,
I don't root for anybody, but I root for the kids, and I'd like to see all the kids win, man. All those players with Georgia State, Kennesaw State. Brian Bohannon's done a great job up there.
True.
Sean Elliott at Georgia State. I mean, you want to see the kids win. I want to see them do well.
Yeah, hey, look, I'm with you about Georgia Tech, right? I mean, I was there. I covered a few of their games this year. So I think, like you said, the city would be so much better if Georgia Tech was better. I wasn't sure. I think. Well, from all people around the program, seem to think Brent Key was a really good hire, right? I mean, they seem to think a lot of high school coaches were on board with Brent Key being the starting head coach, not starting, with him being the head coach at Georgia Tech. So yeah, I mean, I think that it provides. Now, when I first saw the opening, though, I thought they may chase someone like Coach Prime. Given the fact that he played with the Falcons.
And he'd be huge in Atlanta, no doubt.
It would be huge in Atlanta. I thought they would make a bigger play for Deion Sanders. It seemed like a perfect match. Deion Sanders at Georgia Tech, back in Atlanta where he started his NFL career, and he's already
Major
shown
League Baseball career too.
Yeah, baseball career. So he was Mr. Atlanta for a long time. I thought Georgia Tech would make a bigger play for him when it was known that he was kind of available. Colorado swooped in and got him, but I just can't help but wonder how big that would have been to have him in Atlanta, the kind of players he would have been able to recruit, what kind of rivalry that could have been with Coach Prime and Kirby Smart for that last game of the year. But with that being said, though, I think Brent Key was a pretty solid hire for what Georgia Tech needs to do.
you know, and I hope that he does well. I mean, because he's a good guy. We've gotten over there. You've talked to him. I've talked to him.
Yes.
And he's a good guy, and he's media friendly, which of course we like that. But you know, we want all the kids to succeed. That's, you know, I don't really root for one team or another, and because you get in trouble when you do that. But I root for all the kids, all the players, man. I want them all to do great and go on and have great lives after football.
And it's, well, like you did, right, Fred? After you played some college ball too. But seriously though, I mean, and you know how it works too, Fred. You play college football. Yeah. It's less about X's and O's and more about the Steves and Joes, right? I mean, that's kind of what they say when it comes. So if you're Georgia Tech, you got to get players, and that's why I was leaning towards Coach Prime, because I know he can get players. I know that he has the ability to be able to attract those sort of pieces. And how hard is it to attract that young 18, 19-year-old men to Atlanta, Georgia?
You got to get them into the institute, though.
That's true. That's
the key right there. Is you got to get them into the institute, and then you got to keep them there.
Yeah. I mean,
you got to keep them there, and that's. I mean, it's amazing. You know, Randy Waters is a good friend of ours, and he does the analyst role on the Georgia Tech radio network for basketball.
Yeah.
And you know, Josh Pastner, they travel with an academic advisor a lot of times because they've got homework and stuff they have to do on the road.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, look, if they would have recruited me, I was far too stupid to go to Georgia Tech, so there's no way I would have got in. So, oh well.
No, sure you would have. You could use that slide rule, right? Yeah. The engineer.
Oh well.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us on Sports Tonight. Scotty, great job again, baby.
Thank
All
you,
right.
man. Appreciate it.
Let's go.
Thank you. Hey,